It's time for your local Farm News Week in Review. This week in Farm News, some producer groups are asking the Obama administration to suspend enforcement of its new Clean Water Act rule until a court case is resolved. The administration considers implementation of the rule blocked in only 13 states as a result of last week's decision by a North Dakota federal judge. In a letter to the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers on Monday, the National Milk Producers Federation said that because of the ruling, dairy farmers will be treated differently nationwide depending on where they live. The National Pork Producers Council last Friday also called on the administration to delay implementation of the rule nationwide. The other 12 states involved in the lawsuit are Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Idaho, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, South Dakota, and Wyoming. A federal judge in the Southern District of Georgia declined to block the rule's implementation in a separate case brought by another 11 states. The judge, the Honorable Lisa Goodby Wood, said the case should have been handled in an appeals court. The rule redefines what streams, ditches, and wetlands fall under the jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act. The North Dakota judge, Chief Judge Ralph R. Erickson, said in his ruling that the states are likely to succeed on their claim and that the greater public interest favors issuance of the preliminary injunction. The rule went into effect in most states on last Friday. The USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service will soon begin conducting the Agricultural Resource Management Survey, also known as ARMS, in order to gather data from soybean, oat, and spring wheat producers on their production practices. ARMS serves as the primary source of information on the use of crop protection chemicals, ensuring that the Environmental Protection Agency and other regulators use real-world data when making decisions about future availability of these products. This according to Dan Lifhaus, state statistician for the Minnesota NASS field office. The survey results help agricultural leaders and decision-makers better understand how producers cope with risk, adapt to policy changes, make decisions about chemical use, new techniques, and other aspects of farming. In Minnesota, data will be collected from about 300 soybean producers, 200 oat producers, and 150 spring wheat producers this fall. NASS representatives will be conducting in-person interviews with producers to gather data on their chemical use, pest management, and other practices for soybeans, oats, and spring wheat production. The data collected by ARMS will aid farmers in many ways. Your participation in ARMS ensures that decisions affecting you, your family, your business, and your community are based on the facts straight from the source, this according to Lifhaus. Early next year, we will also follow up with some of the participants to obtain additional economic data. As with all NASS surveys, information provided by respondents is confidential, that by federal law. NASS safeguards the privacy of all respondents and publishes data only in aggregate form, ensuring that no individual operation or grower can be identified. The results of the ARMS will be released on NASS's website, which is www.nass.usda.gov. That'll be released on May 13th of next year. For more information on NASS surveys and reports, visit the website nass.usda.gov. Minnesota apple growers are already reporting orchards full of big, high-quality apples. Many early varieties are available across the state, with more varieties close behind. Ralph Yates, secretary of the Minnesota Apple Growers Association, says the 2015 crop will be excellent for growers and consumers due to the consistent growing season. He says this year we are back to normal harvest dates. Retail stands opening around Labor Day will have a good supply of high-quality fruits. Minnesota is known for flavorful apple varieties specifically bred to thrive in our climate. This includes University of Minnesota cultivators Zest Tough, Honeycrisp, Sweet Tango, Harlstrom, and Sweet 16. Minnesota-bred apple varieties taste the best when grown right here in our home state, he says. The apples have world-class flavor if you can hold out for the locally grown in-season varieties. Enjoy these early-season apples like Paula Red, Sweet Tango, and Wealthy now, and look for favorites like Honeycrisp after Labor Day. The USDA's Commodity Credit Corporation earlier this week announced its interest rates for September. The CCC borrowing rate-based charge for September is set at 0.375%, which is up from 0.25% in August. The interest rate for crop year commodity loans for less than 1 year, which is being dispersed during September, is set at 1.375%, up from 1.25% last month. Interest rates for farm stores facility loans approved for September are as follows. 2% even with 7-year loan terms. That's down from 2 1/8% back in August. 2.25% with 10-year loan terms, down from 2.375% in August. And 2.25% with 12-year loan terms, that's down from 2.5% in August. The interest rate for 15-year sugar storage facility loans for September is set at 2.375%, down from 2.625% in August. Further program information is available from the USDA's Farm Service Agency's Financial Management Division by calling 202-772-6041 or contacting your local USDA Service Center. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture has announced a new round of funding for the Sustainable Agriculture Demonstration Grant Program. This 25-year-old program provides small grants to test ideas that could conserve natural resources, enhance profitability, and improve life on the farm. Nearly $250,000 is now available, and applications are due in December. Farmers are great innovators who will always be looking for ways to do things better, but sometimes the risk of trying something new acts as a barrier. This according to MDA Program Administrator Julie LeClaire. These grants make it possible for farmers to test out an idea before adopting it whole hog, she says. Outside reviewers rank and recommend projects for funding. Applications from farmers receive priority, but the program also funds Minnesota nonprofit and educational organizations as long as Minnesota farmers are meaningfully involved in the project. Projects can last for up to 3 years, and applicants may receive up to $25,000 for their projects, although many request less. Grantees must be willing to share what they learn with others. Since 1989, the agency's Sustainable Agriculture Demonstration Grant Program has awarded more than $3 million to 300 statewide projects. Current and past grant projects are highlighted in the Green Book, which is found at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture's website. The deadline to apply is December 15th. For more information and application materials, call 651-201-6012. I was able to speak with Kevin Papp at the Minnesota State Fair about the ruling where a North Dakota judge put a temporary injunction in prohibiting the rule in 13 states.
Well, it doesn't mean anything for Minnesota farmers because that injunction only involved 13 states. It wasn't Minnesota. So Minnesota and 37 other states, that rule is in effect. It was started in effect 12:01 last Friday morning, and that's going to drastically change how we do things in agriculture. And the problem is there's too much uncertainty as far as what is a water of the U.S., what is not a water of the U.S., how do I know that? So we've got some real concerns, and this is really not about water quality. This is about property rights.
And the rule has some major concerns from ag groups. Papp points those out for the American farmer.
It is, and as we're concerned about being within 4,000 feet, that's a long ways across a field, across a pasture, across anything. So have some real concerns, and really the number one thing we've got is the legal risk. You're not going to know if it's a navigable, or if it's a water of the U.S. You know if it's a navigable water because you can float a boat on it. So there's a lot of concern. We really believe the Clean Water Act, they had it right. This is end around Congress. This is an end around the Supreme Court. And they're going around Congress. And it's really the Supreme Court has said it's the state's job to take care of water quality on those that are not navigable. So we've got real concerns. We're going to continue to work on it, not only with lawsuits. We've got lawsuits, 30 states, 14 organizations in a lawsuit. But we also have legislation. We're going to do everything we can to convince Senator Klobuchar and Senator Franken that they need to support the Water Quality Protection Act, just like they did in the House. Let's stop this and let's do it right.
And the Minnesota State Fair is ongoing now through Labor Day. Kevin Papp talks about what are some of the issues that folks who stop at the Minnesota Farm Bureau building are talking about.
Well, I think the issues that we talk to folks at the fair, the consumers, there's no better place than to talk to an awful lot of folks in one spot is they want to know about food. They want to know about how the food that they eat, it's animals. The state fair is all about animals, whether it be FFA or 4-H projects, how those animals were cared for. They want to know about the crops, what type of crops, how do you grow the crops. Certainly want to have questions about biotechnology and other things. So it's a great opportunity to talk about who the farm families are and what we do to care for the livestock, care for the animals, as well as the crops.
Kevin Papp, president of the Minnesota Farm Bureau Federation, talking about the recent ruling on the Waters of the United States Act and what it means for Minnesota farmers, and what visitors to the Minnesota State Fair can expect when they stop by the Minnesota Farm Bureau building. And that concludes this week's local Farm News Week in Review. Farm News available online 24/7 at fallsradio.com. I'm Farm Director Scott Colomb saying, thanks for listening.